In a world obsessed with exposure, where validation is measured in views and likes, the real strength lies not in how loud you are, but in how quiet you can be. You see, we've been taught to chase, to broadcast, to perform. But what if the power you're looking for isn't out there for the world to see? What if it's hidden in the silence you've been avoiding? The strongest lives are often the quietest ones, because what's sacred doesn't beg to be seen, it demands to be protected. Most people live in a constant loop of noise, scrolling, posting, updating, reacting. Every thought is a tweet, every win is a post, every step is a story. But in that endless performance, something powerful gets lost: your peace. There's strength in privacy, there's wisdom in withholding. Because when you protect your peace, you protect your power. We weren't made to be constantly visible. The more exposed you are, the more open you are to the opinions, judgments, and projections of people who aren't walking your path. And the moment you start living for their expectations, you lose control of your own direction. Think about how much mental space is taken up worrying about what others think. How often have you held back a decision, not because it wasn't right for you, but because you feared how it would be perceived? That hesitation, that second guessing, steals your clarity. And when your clarity is gone, your power fades with it. Keeping your life private isn't about being mysterious, it's about being centered. When you keep your circle tight and your plans quiet, you create a sanctuary where your mind can think clearly, where your soul can rest, and where your vision can breathe. You begin to move from a place of depth, not noise, a place of intention, not distraction. That's what peace gives you. That's what privacy preserves. We've been conditioned to think that if people don't see it, it doesn't count. If your success isn't posted, if your progress isn't applauded, then somehow it's less valuable. But real growth doesn't need an audience. Real transformation happens when no one's watching. The late nights, the inner battles, the quiet discipline. That's the foundation of true strength, and it's always built in silence. People love to talk. They'll tell the world what they're going to do, how big their plans are, how focused they've become. But here's the truth. The more you talk about what you're going to do, the less likely you are to do it. Why? Because the brain mistakes talking for doing. That dopamine hit you get from sharing your vision can trick you into thinking you've already done the work. And when the applause comes too early, you lose the hunger to follow through. When you keep your goals to yourself, you guard your energy. You stay rooted in the process instead of chasing praise. You work from a place of alignment, not approval. That kind of silence, it sharpens you. It humbles you. It reminds you that your purpose isn't performance, it's progress. You don't owe anyone an explanation for your grind. You don't need permission to evolve. When you live privately, you take your power back from the world. You stop outsourcing your worth to likes and validation. You become the master of your own narrative, no longer swayed by trends or opinions or distractions. And that's where true self-discipline is born, not in noise, but in stillness. Privacy gives you the time to build, and building takes time. There's a quiet season in every journey where nothing looks impressive from the outside, but everything is forming on the inside. That's where character is built. That's where vision is refined. That's where momentum is created. Some of the most powerful moments in your life won't be shared. They won't be posted. They won't be praised. But they'll shape you. They'll anchor you. And they'll guide you toward a version of yourself that doesn't need attention to feel enough. So stop chasing the noise. Stop broadcasting your every move. Don't dilute your dreams in the flood of other people's opinions. Guard your peace like your life depends on it, because it does. And when you stop needing to be seen, you finally start to see what really matters. Keep it quiet. Keep it real. Keep building. Power isn't always loud. In fact, the strongest people you'll ever meet are often the quietest in the room. There's something magnetic about a person who doesn't feel the need to prove themselves. Someone who knows their worth and moves with calm certainty. That kind of energy doesn't come from shouting, it comes from mastering the art of restraint. From knowing that just because you can speak doesn't mean you always should. And just because you can reveal doesn't mean you always must. The desire to overshare often comes from insecurity. When we're unsure of ourselves, we seek confirmation. We want people to agree, to clap, to validate. We crave the echo that says, yes, you're doing it right. But the moment you need external approval to feel internal confidence, you've already given your power away. That's why self-assurance grows stronger in silence. When you learn to hold things close, not because you're hiding, but because you're building, everything shifts. Not everything is meant for the world. Some things are sacred. Your dreams, your fears, your process, your evolution. These are not content, they're part of your becoming. And when you share them too soon, you expose them to energy that hasn't earned the right to see them. Because not everyone is for you, not everyone wants you to rise. And when you reveal your inner world to the wrong people, their doubt can infect your focus like poison. Silence becomes your shield. It gives you time to filter what's real from what's reactionary. You begin to move from intention, not impulse. And that is where power is forged, not in defending yourself, but in no longer needing to. There's a quiet confidence in those who do the work in private and let results speak louder than words ever could. No announcement, no performance, just movement, just progress, just results. The loudest one in the room is often the least certain. They shout so no one sees how uncertain they feel. But true confidence doesn't need attention, it creates it. When you walk into a space, grounded, unshaken, eyes forward, heart steady, that's the kind of presence that moves people. That's the kind of presence that commands respect without demanding it. You become dangerous in the best way, when you're no longer triggered by the need to respond, when you don't take every opportunity to explain yourself, when you allow people to misunderstand you and still keep your peace. Because that's when you know your energy is too valuable to waste. You've seen what chaos costs, you've felt what drama steals, and you've learned through experience that peace isn't passive, it's a choice, a disciplined, powerful choice. When you stop oversharing, you also stop overcommitting. You begin to protect your yes. You start saying no to things that drain you, distract you, or pull you off your path. You learn the value of quiet exits. You don't argue. You don't announce. You just step back. That's strength. That's control. That's someone who's mastered their emotional responses and no longer dances to the rhythm of other people's chaos. Every time you overshare, you open the door for others to shape your reality. You give them ammunition to influence your mindset, your direction, even your sense of self. But when you learn to hold your cards close, you regain control of your narrative. You get to decide who gets access, who gets a seat at the table of your life. And the fewer the seats, the stronger the table. There's power in not being fully known. Power in keeping certain parts of yourself untouched by the world. That part of you, the sacred, the untamed, the raw, is where your magic lives. Protect it, guard it. Let it evolve in silence, without the weight of opinions. You don't need the world's feedback to grow. You just need your own conviction. Let them wonder what you're up to. Let your silence make noise. Move in purpose, not performance. Build in solitude. Elevate without explanation, because when the results come, they'll speak for themselves. And the silence that protected your peace, That silence will echo louder than any applause ever could. So stay quiet, stay grounded, and let your life become the loudest thing about you. Privacy is not about hiding, it's about protecting. There's a difference. When you move in silence, you're not running from the world. You're building something too sacred to be exposed to noise. Because, let's be honest, noise distracts, distorts, and drains. Every time you let the wrong energy into your process, you weaken your ability to focus, to grow, to hear your own thoughts without interruption. And in a world where attention is currency, your privacy is your wealth. The more people know about your plans, your next move, your relationships, your struggles, the more opinions you invite. And with those opinions come pressure, projections, and expectations that don't belong to you. That's how people lose themselves. They start shaping their life around how it will be received rather than how it truly feels. You begin living a version of your truth filtered through someone else's insecurities. That's why privacy is power. Because when you stop sharing everything, you give yourself space to breathe, to think, to fail quietly, to rise again without having to answer for every step. You stop performing and start becoming. You reclaim your story before it's written by someone else's judgment. And in that space, you rediscover something deeper than applause: self-respect. The most powerful transformations happen in solitude. Not in front of an audience, not under a spotlight, in the quiet, in the stillness, when no one's watching and you have no one to impress but your future self. That's where real growth takes root, and that's exactly why it must be protected. Look at your life like a garden. You don't let just anyone walk through it. You don't leave the gate wide open, because some people trample what you're planting, not out of malice, but out of carelessness. They don't know what it took for you to even start. They don't understand the late nights, the doubts, the sacrifices, and that's okay. They don't have to. It's not their garden to understand. It's yours to grow. Privacy lets you protect that space. It gives you the freedom to water your roots in peace, to change direction without having to explain yourself, to evolve without announcing it. There is so much strength in the person who can stay silent in a world that rewards oversharing, because it takes real discipline to keep something beautiful to yourself in a culture that teaches you to post every victory, every struggle, every thought. But the more you keep to yourself, the more control you keep over your energy. You get to choose what feeds you. You get to protect your pace. You don't owe the world an explanation for why you're moving in silence. You owe yourself the right to become, without interference. And here's something else. Privacy keeps your relationship stronger. When everyone knows your business, everyone feels entitled to comment on it. That creates division, tension, unnecessary noise. But when you and the people you care about keep your circle tight, the bond becomes real, unshaken, because it's not being performed for anyone. It's not being dissected or judged. It just is. Genuine, simple, and strong. People will always be curious. They'll want to know what you're doing, who you're with, what your next step is. But that curiosity doesn't mean you owe them access. There's a power in being untraceable, in letting your actions speak, not your announcements. The people who need to know will know, and the rest can wonder. There's also peace in privacy, a deep kind of peace. The kind you can't buy or fake, the kind that lets you rest without needing likes, live without seeking validation, build without needing applause. Because you know what matters. You know where you're going, and you've chosen to protect it. So don't feel guilty for keeping things to yourself. Don't second-guess your silence. In fact, start viewing it as your strength. Not everything sacred is meant to be shared. Some things grow best when left in the dark, away from judgment, away from envy, away from the constant eyes of the world. Protect your peace. Move with intention. Guard your energy like it's gold, because it is. And let the world see only what you choose, when you choose, if you choose. You don't need the world to understand your silence, especially when that silence is where your strength lives. That's the thing most people overlook. Peace isn't found in noise in the spotlight or in a crowd cheering your name. It's found in the moments you spend with yourself, in full honesty, in solitude. That's where the real you is forged, not the version you show the world, but the one that doesn't have to pretend, perform, or explain. There's a calm that comes when you stop chasing validation, when you're no longer addicted to being seen or heard, when you realize that being understood is not a requirement for being true to yourself. You'll feel a shift, less urgency, less anxiety, more control. You stop feeling like you're running out of time, and instead you settle into your rhythm, your pace, your truth. The moment you stop oversharing your life, people will start to wonder, and some may even drift away. Let them. Not everyone deserves a front row seat to your transformation. You'll find out who really respects you by who doesn't demand access to every part of your world. Those who don't feel entitled to your process, your healing, your setbacks, your inner world. Those are the ones who honor you without needing proof. Keep those people close and keep everything else sacred. You'll also notice how much more focused you become. You're not scattering your energy trying to update people on what you're doing, how you're doing, why you're doing it. You're just doing it quietly, consistently, powerfully. And that kind of focus, it sharpens you. It gives you clarity. It lets you build without being distracted by the world's noise or opinions. That's where excellence is born. In silence, in discipline, in the refusal to dilute your purpose for the sake of performance. And let's talk about results. Because here's the truth. The loudest one in the room is rarely the strongest. The strongest one doesn't need to talk. They show, and they show when it's time, not before, not to prove anything, but because the work speaks for itself. That's what privacy protects. The quality of your results, the integrity of your journey, the authenticity of your effort. Now, there's another truth you need to carry with you. When you start keeping your life to yourself, your peace grows. But so does the misunderstanding. People will assume. They'll judge the gaps in what they don't see. Let them. Let them misunderstand you. That's not your burden to carry. Your job is to stay committed to your truth, not to correct every false impression. Your life isn't a debate, it's a direction. Walk it, and walk it fully. And that leads to the final truth. Not everyone is supposed to walk with you. This life, your life, it demands that you choose your company with great care. And sometimes that means walking alone. Not because you're isolated, but because you're intentional. When you're focused on building a life of purpose, you'll have less time for explaining, defending, or entertaining people who aren't aligned with that mission. That's not loneliness, that's elevation. You're not here to please the crowd. You're here to become something real, something grounded, something powerful. And that kind of becoming, it requires distance. Distance from drama, distance from distraction, distance from anything that pulls you out of your center. That's why keeping your life private isn't a sign of hiding. It's a declaration of strength, a quiet but firm statement. I'm not here to be seen. I'm here to be. You don't owe anyone the version of you that's still figuring things out. You don't owe the world a window into your pain just because it craves a spectacle. You owe yourself the dignity of your own process, your private evolution, your unbroadcasted growth. There is more power in moving in silence than most people will ever understand. Because when no one knows your next step, no one can shake it. When your peace is protected, your vision gets clearer. And when you stop sharing everything, you finally start living something worth keeping. In a world that confuses visibility with value, it's easy to fall into the trap of thinking that being seen is the same as being successful. But let me tell you something real. Privacy isn't about hiding, it's about protecting. Protecting your focus, protecting your growth, protecting your alignment with something greater than noise, likes, or applause. We've been conditioned to believe that everything must be shared, every win must be posted, every thought turned into content. But purpose doesn't live in performance, it lives in presence, and presence needs stillness. You can't be deeply rooted and constantly broadcasting. One of those things will suffer. You have to choose. Keeping your life private means keeping your path clear. You're no longer steering through the expectations of others. You're walking in alignment with your own values, your own mission. That kind of alignment brings peace. You stop chasing, you stop comparing, you stop proving. And in that stillness, you hear the most important voice, your own. Privacy gives you power not because it creates mystery for others, but because it creates clarity for you. When you don't have to explain yourself, you get to explore yourself. You get to deepen, refine, evolve. And that evolution is sacred. It's not for display, it's for impact. So don't confuse the silence with stagnation. Don't confuse the solitude with separation. You're not pulling away from the world, you're pulling deeper into purpose, into mastery, into meaning. That's the power of keeping your life private, and that's exactly where the real transformation begins. So stop chasing applause, stop handing your peace to the crowd, and instead, build in silence, move in purpose, and let your life speak for itself. Privately, powerfully, and unapologetically.